Before we get much further in what we're working with here, let's take a minute and give this thing a border. I think it's always helpful to know what you have the space to work within. Typically graphics, you're fitting something inside a very specific shape. If someone asks you to design a graphic and you say what size is it, you really can't begin until you get a size, because you can set it up for an 8.5 by 11 page and hope that's what they want, but you never know. So I'm going to go back to my background layer and lock down these other layers here. I'm going to draw a box. And I'm going to try and get that pretty consistent with the edges of my image. So let's go to Window, Brush Libraries, and we're going to go to Borders, and I'm going to select Borders Lines. Okay, and then out of all these different borders, we've got some pretty crazy things here. Some of them lend themselves more to the retro look than others. I like this one right here. It's understated. It doesn't compete with the busy text that we're going to be putting in there, and everything seems to be working nicely there. So now we've got that. We can turn off our fill color, and we've even further defined the area that we're going to work within. It's already starting to look kind of retro. Isn't that cool? Alright, so let's lock this down. We're going to go back to layer 2. Now, layer 1, or actually let me talk a minute about this. See where it says text here? And if I click on this, you'll notice that we have the box. There is a feature here where it says paste remembers layers. Okay, if I copy something from another file where I got this, it came from the text layer. So you'll notice that remembered, the layer was called text. So if we wanted to have some more fun, we could copy, let's say, the pattern layer. Let's copy this. We're going to come back over. Now if I paste this, Control V, you'll notice that now we have a pattern layer because paste remembered the names of the layers. Okay, so we may get back to these things. We may use those. They may be useful. They may not be. All right, but for right now, we can lock them and we can even hide them. Okay, so let's go back to where we were, and now we're going to make sure that our text is justified. Okay, so we're going to click here to justify that. Look at the craziness that goes on in here. Okay, so now we've got these gigantic gaps and things that are going on. We can fill those up by changing the point size. You can generally adjust your text within about 10% before you really distort it too much. Okay, so this is messed up. This is not the order of the song. Where is my whole Saturday? Shucks. Okay, well, we're just going to have to roll ahead with this and keep moving on. So, the end of the verse comes down to the luckiest man, and then I have this here. So if I want to, I can take my direct selection tool and move this up this way. And now you'll notice that the text went down there. This text now has some of that attributes, so we want this all to be a ragged left, and now that brings that back. Okay, so let's come in here and start defining some of the fonts and some of the sizes that we want. So I think we can pull this box up just a wee bit higher. So I'm going to use my direct selection tool to extend this line back up. All right, and now I'm going to highlight just this line because we're going to give each line a different font. Typically, you would not do this. Normally, in a document that is not retro, you probably want 2 to 3 typefaces at the most. In my example, we've used like 5, I believe. We do use the Gill Sans family, which helps keep things a little bit more consistent and is not quite as exhausting on the viewer's eyes. So I'm going to come in here, and I like Gaudi Old Style. Okay, so now we've got Gaudi Old Style here. We can increase this, and you'll notice that the space in between fills up to a certain point, and then we go to another line. So we can come back, 1 point back off of that, and that's pretty good. Okay, So we've got a skinny, what is called serif font. Okay, serifs are these little objects on the tops and the bottoms of the letters. This is a sans serif font. Okay, so let's zoom back out just a wee bit here. And I'm going to highlight this line of text. And we're going to change this to, let's say, a Gill Sans. Okay, and I'm going to make this a bold. All right, and since it is really, really wide like this, we can bring this up just a wee bit more, bring that back down. You know what? We still have a lot of space in here, and there's a neat trick that you can do to fill up some space. Did you know that lowercase letters take up less space than uppercase letters? And there's a feature in here under the type tool where we can change the case without having to type anything. Okay, so let's see what happens if we make this all uppercase. Alright, so things are looking pretty good here. And I think we can probably adjust this just a wee bit more. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and press the left arrow, and let's see how far we can go before that comes back in. Okay, I think that's still pretty readable, but it's really starting to block up. So maybe we'll knock down the point size on that just a wee bit. So let's highlight this, and we're going to make this 23. That's looking a whole lot better. And then this point size we could actually bring up a wee bit, and I think it's still reading okay. With an infographic or with something like this, readability is the most important thing. If you're formatting text and people can't read it or are distracted by large areas like this in the middle, you're not doing a very good job. Okay, so let's do something with this line here. And we're going to change this to, let's try another Gill Sans, but this is going to be, let's go for Myriad actually. I like kind of like that Myriad. So we're going to increase this text size. Let's see what happens here. There appears to be a carriage return in here, so I'm going to hit delete, and now our spacing is closed back up. And you're up against and too many forces. I think that may be the internet being our friend once again here. You're up against too many horses. Alright, so sometimes you have to read what somebody's given you just to make sure that somebody else doesn't look over your shoulder and say, how did you miss that? Okay, so now we've got this. I still think that's looking a little odd. There's another font that I think would contrast nicely with this called Fort, which has kind of a script look to it. Okay, so this is coming along nicely. Let's come here and increase this font size. Let's see what we can do here. Alright, now why is this not the same size? We need to get that the same. So this is 35 if this ever happens. Come back over here, highlight this, and you can just type in the number that you need. Alright, so clearly 35 points is too big, so we can go back down. There we go. So now you'll notice that some of this is kind of running together. It's not reading quite as well as it could. We can adjust our leading by hitting Alt, bringing this down one. Okay. If I had highlighted both of these lines, it would change the leading for both. But we don't need to do that. This line, let's change this. Let's bring this line up a little bit closer. I'm going to hold down Alt and bring this back up. Okay. Let's see how that looks. I think that's reading a whole lot better. So now we can come down here and see what we can do for this. So in this line, I'm going to do something a little bit crazy, and we're going to go back with our, no, I think that's too much text. Let's go back to our Gaudi. Okay, so we can go to Gaudi, old style. But one thing we can do is we can highlight this text, okay, And then in our type menu, we can define a character style. Okay, so the same way we've been defining other character styles, we can just hit a new page, and I'm going to call this Gaudi Old Style, and that looks like it's about a 25 point. So I'm going to make sure that all that is spec'd out. So now I can come down here and I can click on this, and it changes it to the Gaudi Old Style. So once again, we have the text flowing out of the box into another box. So let's check this. We'll pull this down just a wee bit, and now we've got some really bizarre stuff going here. So we're going to have to find a nice way to fill this up. So why don't we try making this all caps and see what happens there. Uppercase, filling it a little bit better, right? I think so. So here, maybe we can find another Gaudi. We can come over here and see, oh look, there's a bold. I don't think we have a bold italic. We could try the italic. I like the bold better. So let's go with the bold, alright? And then we'll increase this font size just a little bit more. And there we go. So now when we look at this, this text is getting kind of lost up here. So maybe we can increase the leading underneath this. Let's see what happens. Pull that down away from there a little bit. Let's see how that reads. I think that's looking a little bit better. Alright, so here we've gone through justified text. Alright, we also looked at how this is being flowed from this box into here. And next we're going to look at how to work with text that has two columns. Okay, and as we get through this, we'll start adding other embellishments like text on a path and other things like that. So let's stop here and we'll come back in the next video.